I hope you've also had an interesting and eventful day. Hopefully it's been positive rather than not, but it's great to be here. I'm just going to bring my mic a little closer in case, you might have been struggling to hear me properly. I often forget to do that. So 2 minutes past 5. Helen, I'm in Brisbane today, enjoying the rain. Yes, it's stopped raining where I am, but it has been a very rainy day. And Ali's on the Gold Coast. David's in Brisbane. Um, we normally have, really, really large numbers of people attend this webinar. It's a bit slower today. Maybe people are getting a bit closer to Christmas. They're not really looking for a new job at the moment. They just want to get this year done and dusted and have a good holiday. I know that feeling very well. I feel very much the same way. It's been a weird year this year. Probably from our perspective, a year of a bit of change, some really positive change, and some new people joining the team, and lots of things to feel good and about. But I tell you, it's been hard. It's been a hard year, and it's an old fella now, 57 years old. It's starting to get a little bit weary. Not, my usual self in terms of, I think back to when I was 35, and now I think about myself, and I definitely don't have the petrol in my tank that I used to, but we fight on, we battle on, and we win the good fight. And I'm sure next year is going to be really fantastic, pending any further global emergencies, wars, tariffs, the rise of AI. I'm listening to an excellent podcast series at the moment about AI. It's called The Last Invention, and the 5th episode just came out today. It's a series of 8. I listened to the 5th one today, and I tell you what, if you're not really across what's happening with AI and the existential risk of AI, I would definitely recommend listening to this podcast. It is an eye-opening experience, and I don't think many of us really understand or appreciate, what some of the highlights and perhaps the lowlights of the coming artificial general intelligence revolution. But it is upon us. In my opinion, it's inevitable. So strap yourself in, folks, and enjoy this wild ride. Okay, it's 5 minutes past 5 or thereabouts. So let's get into it. Okay, so for people who haven't previously attended this webinar, it has a fantastic title. It's called Ask Me Anything. And the reason it's called Ask Me Anything is because it's your opportunity to ask me anything about your job search. And the webinar might go for an hour. If there's tons of questions and I need to keep going, I'm very happy to go as long as it takes. If we run out of puff and we finish a bit early, then that's fine too. But, it's 5 o'clock, it's a Tuesday afternoon, and I'm sure everybody's got other things they'd like to be doing. So I want to make sure that I deliver the best possible value to you. And the way for me to do that is to answer your questions. So I would encourage you, anything that's on your mind in relation to your job search, to type it into the Q&A. And I will go through and I will answer those questions as they come up. And we'll run until we run out of questions. So the chat, so not in chat, but in Q&A, please, because it's easier for me to keep across all of the questions then. So please ask away. While I'm waiting for those first questions to come in, perhaps let me sort of talk a little bit about the market in general. It'd be fair to say that the market is very healthy and positive at the moment. There's lots of opportunity. Organizations are continually looking for excellent talent. And so if you are in job seeker mode, there should be no reason for you to be pessimistic about your opportunities. And, there's some growing trends. For example, we've just launched a fractional and interim recruitment solutions. So this seems to be a growing trend in the market where senior executives are saying, I no longer want to work full-time. I would prefer either to do short-term interim engagements maybe step in to relieve somebody who's taking leave, or a new project, or somebody's resigned and they need somebody to hold the fort. But, stepping in as an interim, typically full-time, but for maybe a 3-month or 6 months engagement, very, very popular. The other one, which is gaining more and more popularity now, is fractional. So fractional, instead of being interim full-time for a specific period, fractional is a fraction of your time. So it might be that you're a CFO and you work fractionally for 3 different companies. So you are their employee as their CFO, but you might give one company 6 days a month and another company 5 days a month, etc. Very, very popular now. A lot of organizations, particularly small to medium enterprise, might be saying, look, we want a really, really good chief marketing officer, but we can't justify spending $300,000. So what we'd like to do is to employ somebody 6 days a month, 8 days a month, whatever it is, and have them do the high level strategic work. And then we employ a more junior person to do the actual operational stuff. So, for example, we have one client, they're about a $30 million turnover business, and they have a fractional CFO, a fractional CHRO, and a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. So, this is, again, becoming a really popular trend. And I suppose, in the post-COVID environment, where particularly more mature professionals are saying, you know what, I don't want to put my entire career into one full-time job, work 60 hours a week, get the gold watch. I'd rather have a more flexible lifestyle and do more interesting work. Fractional and interim, and of course board, work is a great viable option for people. So yeah, so we can talk a bit about that if you want. We can talk about recruiters and what a bunch of scumbags they are and how they always overpromise and overdeliver. We can talk about anything you want. So I'm literally at your service. All right, first question from David. Once a candidate's been an executive recruiter for the first time, what is the best way to, and how often should you keep the recruiter updated on your job seeking progress over the coming weeks and months? That's an excellent question, David. And I talk about that in my book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market. And if anybody doesn't have a copy of that book, you can get a free copy from us, a PDF version, by going to our website. Alternatively, if you email us, we will send you a free PDF version of that book. I wrote that book originally in 2015. I wrote a new edition at the end of COVID, 2023. And again, it's completely free. And if you want one, let us know. Okay, so how often should a candidate stay in touch? Well, the reality is that if you are currently in job seeking mode, you want to be staying in touch frequently. Now, there are a gazillion recruiters out there in the market. 98% of them I wouldn't trust to walk my dog, but there are some very good ones. And so what you want to do is you want to identify recruiters who recruit the roles that you want. So, for example, if you're a entry-level IT recruiter, IT professional, you would not want to have a relationship with me because I don't recruit those people. I recruit CEOs and non-executive directors. So you want to have 4 or 5 recruiters that actively work in the space that you want a new job. How do you work out who's who in the zoo? Easy. You just look at who is advertising the roles that you want. Okay, one of the amazing ways to build a relationship with recruiters that people often don't think about is when you get a TNT, as we call them, or thanks but no thanks email. And so let me give you a sort of an illustration. Let's say that I'm recruiting a CEO. And for that CEO role, I have 200 applicants. And when I go through, I'm looking for potentially 10 CEOs that I want to interview, or 10 candidates for this CEO role. And those people are brought forward for interview. The other 190 or so are going to get a thanks but no thanks email. We've all had plenty of those. I know that I have, right? So thanks for your application. In this instance, there's been better qualified candidates. We wish you all the very best for your job search. Kind regards, Arete Executive, Richard Triggs, whatever. Right. So let's say 190 people get that email. How many people do you think actually ring me and say, hey, Richard, I see that you rejected me for that particular role. I'd love to get some feedback as to why and potentially have a chat to you about, what I'm doing and what I'm looking for. 190 people, how many people do you think ring? The answer is zero. Maybe one, maybe two, but largely zero. Now, personally, I think that is crazy. Here is somebody who's recruiting roles that you want. You know that they do because they've advertised a role that you've applied for. You've been rejected. Why wouldn't you call them and say, can I have some feedback? At the end of the day, one, you want to know how to be a better applicant in the future. And two, it's an opportunity to build a relationship with that recruiter. So once again, I'm not telling you all ring me, right? But I'm telling you, get in front of those recruiters. You want to get in front of them because you want to be front of mind for future opportunities. They may have rejected you for this role. However, they may pick up another role in 2 weeks' time that you might be perfect for. They can't know you and know how to best present you if they haven't met you. I can think of many times in my career where I've been briefed on a role and I've said to the client, look, before we go and advertise this role, I happen to know this person. How about I present that person to you? If you like them and you want them, you can hire them. And if not, we go to the market. I've made many placements like that. There's no way that a recruiter can present you in that situation if they don't know who you are. So what you want to do, whether you're getting that thanks but no thanks, or just in general, you want to reach out to a recruiter and ask them for a meeting. Now, the great thing about the world nowadays is that you don't have to go in and have a coffee and spend an hour and blah, blah, blah. You can have a 15-minute Teams meeting. Most recruiters will definitely have time to do that. It doesn't mean that they have the desire to, but if they don't, they're stupid. But have that 15-minute meeting. And then once you've met with them, I would recommend, going back to David's question, that you're touching base with them at least once a month. Hey, David, it's been a month since we last met. Thought I'd just check in with you, see if there are any other opportunities that have come across your radar that you think I might be suitable for, maybe give you an update on what's happening in terms of my job search. Recruiters talk to hundreds and hundreds of candidates. So you can't assume that they will remember you. I've had situations where I've run an ad and then if somebody's rung me and said, oh, why didn't you contact me about that role? I would have thought that you'd know that I'm suitable for that role. Well, Mary, I talk to 30, 40, 50 people a week. If you see a role, you need to contact me, right? Don't assume I am responsible for your career. Okay, if you see a role, ring me. So again, if you're in job search mode, once a month, dropping a simple one-line email. Hey, Richard, just thought I'd check in, see if you've got any roles currently that might suit me. Fine. Or a quick phone call. Hey, Richard, it's been a month, thought I'd check in. You don't want to be a pain in the butt. You don't want to be overly demanding. I've certainly had many candidates who I think have really pressed the friendship in that regard, but you do want to remain front of mind. And so you don't want to necessarily have 50 recruiters that you have that relationship with, but you need probably at least 4, 5, 6 of them, that know you, that get you, that understand what you're looking for, that can proactively work on your behalf. Don't forget that when they place you, they make a lot of money. So you are income for the recruiters. And if they don't treat you with respect, if they don't return your phone calls or don't reply to your emails, move on. That's their loss. And you are worth much more than feeling that you're beholden to these idiot recruiters who can't be simply courteous enough to return a phone call or an email. Right. Obviously, once you're in a job, you might want to just stay in touch once every 6 months. I have people that I've been working with, both as a candidate and a client, for now well over 15 years, and we catch up once every 6 months. We have a coffee, we talk on the phone, we might go and have a beer, whatever it is. Always helpful. Remember that at some point in the future, you will be looking to be hired again, and potentially you'll be looking to hire. So you want to keep those relationships fresh, but I think once every 6 months or so in that instance is more than enough. Okay, Ali, how do I answer questions on salary expectations if I came back from the Middle East and a higher salary job, but I'm happy with the market in Australia as a sacrifice is being closer to the family and good weather? Well, I would have thought the weather in the Middle East is pretty good too, but that I've not really spent much time there, so I can't really offer a comment there. Look, the thing is, of course, salary is dependent on the role, it's dependent on the industry, it's dependent on the location, etc. So, how do you answer questions on salary expectations? The easiest thing is somebody says, okay, what are your salary expectations for this role? Is to just be honest. Look, I've just returned from the Middle East. I'm kind of getting my feel as to what appropriate salary expectations would be here. What is the range on offer? Right. So answer them by asking them the question, what's the company looking to pay? And then you'll be able to assess, well, is that something that you want to progress with as a candidate or not? Something that I find incredibly frustrating is where recruiters be cautious about saying what the money is. So I remember a situation where I was a candidate years ago, and I was on, I can't remember at the time, let's say it was early in my career, 120,000. A recruiter contacted me about a role. Can you come in for an interview? I said, well, look, I'm currently on 120,000. I'm not interested unless the remuneration is at least what I'm on. I ended up going in, having this interview. I had to take time off work, blah, blah, blah. And then he said the salary is 90,000. And I was, in my opinion, legitimately upset because I had set the expectation and he had not treated me honestly or respectfully. The thing about salary, is that when a company briefs a recruiter, whether that recruiter is internal or external, they typically are suggesting a salary. So, for example, I picked up a role today for my team. It's a project manager role for a construction company, and they've said 180,000. So when a candidate, we're engaged with a candidate, well, what's the money? Look, it's circa 180,000. The recruiter is being quite directed in terms of the money. However, if you approach directly your employers of choice and you get in front of them before they know that they need you, and based on your key achievements and transferable skills, they want to hire you, you've got a much greater ability to dictate salary because you're not part of a normal recruitment process. So the company might say, oh, Ali, you're amazing. We'd love to hire you. How much do you want? Then you could say 240. Right? If they'd gone to the market, they would have gone to the market at 180. And if you said to the recruiter, you want 240, then the recruiter would probably say, look, you're outside of the range of consideration, so I'm not going to put you forward. Right? But the reality is that if you can bring enough value to the employer and you can save them money, save them time, save them stress, whatever it might be, would they pay 240 versus 180? Most of the time, yes. Obviously, they wouldn't pay 500 if they were originally positioning at 180. But so this is the issue with the active job market, because by the time it's got into the job market, those kind of things, they're not necessarily set in stone, but there's some fairly clear boundaries. What you want to do is get in front of your employer of choice before they know that they need you. It gives you the ability to set salary accordingly. In saying that, going back to your original question, Ali, I mean, obviously you're back in Australia, you want to get a role here. It might be that you compromise for your first opportunity on salary knowing that you'll make it up with your next move. All right. Fedra, I think I need a little sip. I'm getting a bit parched already. Too much talking. Unfortunately, so this is Fedra. Unfortunately, the pay REM model for recruiters in large recruitment firms will not take or return your call. Okay, so Fedra, I completely understand and appreciate that a lot of recruiters won't take or return your calls. And I think that that is absolutely appalling. I don't think that's got anything to do at all with the pay or REM model. I think it's the fact that they're lazy and stupid. When I got into the recruitment industry, in my 30 somethings, I went and worked for a company called Hudson, at the time called TMP Worldwide, biggest recruitment company in the world. And, I joined this business, and literally within probably the first 4 weeks, I recognized that if there was one thing that I did that would make me better than 9 out of 10 recruiters, what would it be? Return people's phone calls. And even now, 20 plus years later, I constantly get feedback from very, very senior executives how grateful they are that I've returned their phone call. I was talking recently to a former vice chair of one of Australia's biggest companies, and he said to me, Richard, when I'm in a board role, the recruiters are bashing my door down trying to get recruitment work from me. Now that I'm looking for a job, I can't even get recruiters to return my phone calls or reply to my emails. And I think to myself, how dumb are these recruiters? Because if you treat somebody well with respect and they remember it, then when they get their next job, all those recruiters that treated them like crap, like a commodity, they're not going to want to work with. But if you can actually show them that you're wanting to assist and invest in their success, then they will favor you. Why do you think that I'm doing this webinar? Why do you think that I wrote my book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market? Why do you think I'm running a networking drinks event tomorrow night in Brisbane for Brisbane job seekers? Why do I do this? Because I want to invest in this community, because I know that if I can add value and support you through your job search, then hopefully when you get a new job, you'll go, well, I need to recruit a whatever it is. Arete were really helpful to me. So I'm going to use Arete to do my recruitment, right? There's a saying in recruitment, every candidate today is a potential client tomorrow. Every client today is a potential candidate tomorrow. Lots of recruiters pay lip service to it. Very few actually, walk the talk. And so, coming back to your comment, Fedra, I don't think it's anything to do with the pay or REM. I think it's the fact that, they're short-sighted, they're stupid, and that is why the recruitment industry, I think the statistic is something like 70 or even 90% of people who come into recruitment leave within 2 years, never to return. Right? They just don't get it. And that's why, as a job seeker, you need to find recruiters that understand you, respect you, value, and support you, because recruiters like that are rare and are worth their weight in gold. In saying that, I'm not saying everybody here ring me tomorrow and say, oh, Richard, can I have a meeting? I don't have time to do that, right? I have a team of people who do that. I've got a whole bunch of resources that I can send you, which I'm very happy to. And if you want to meet with me, come to one of my events, come to this webinar if you have. So I'm trying to leverage my time to be of greatest value. But certainly, Fedra, I hear your comment. I respect your comment, and I think it's very well-founded. Carla. Hi, Richard. Thanks for your time this evening. Thanks, Carla. Thanks for your time too. What are your thoughts on professionals who swap between perm leadership roles to advisory consulting and then back? Favorable or unfavorable? It's interesting. I talk to a lot of very senior executives who, either through redundancy or choice, have stepped out of a full-time role into consulting type work, interim work, fractional work, whatever it is, but you're consulting because that's what you're talking about. And, some of those people love it. They thrive. They enjoy the flexibility, the freedom, etc. And they would never even consider going back into full time. Others go, you know what, Richard, I've enjoyed doing consulting work for a while, but I really miss being part of a team, being part of a leadership team where I actually can get things done. I don't want to just be all care, no responsibility. I actually want to be able to deliver, on the consulting work that I do. I want to get back into being in an ELT. Nothing wrong with that. What a lot of people who step into consulting type work, they don't really realize that in order to have clients, you've got to sell yourself, right? So they step out and maybe, for a short time, they've got a couple of existing relationships that feed them work, but then they're going, well, where's my forward order book of, consulting work to do? I don't like selling. I don't really want to go out and pitch myself. It's safer for me to go back and get a full-time job. And then there are people, like you, Carla, who step in and step out. Similarly, there's people who step in and step out. They work in a for-profit business, they go into a not-for-profit business, or they're in not-for-profit, they go into for-profit, or they step backwards and forwards. I don't think that there's really any stigma or issue around it, except for longevity. If I was to look at a CV, and I can see this person's changing jobs every 6 months and they're full-time, they're consulting, they're full-time consulting. It's not a really good reflection on their commitment. And in fact, taking a brief today on a role, the client was adamant about wanting to see good longevity on somebody's CV. Now, of course, we understand that over the last few years, with COVID and other things going on, people's careers might be a little bit more patchy than normal. But I would definitely suggest to you that you don't want to have too much change because it may send the wrong impression to a potential employer. Ali, second question. If most of the projects I worked on were confidential and any photo or news may have consequences, how do I cover it in my resume? Okay, excellent question. So, of course, let's say that I work for a business and the business turned over $5 million, and under my leadership or, my division or wherever, I grew it from 5 million to 7 million, or market share from X to Y or whatever it might be. Really good to have quantifiable key achievements on your CV. Really good because it demonstrates your capability and attractiveness as a person. But of course, if it's in confidence, if it's a private company or for whatever reason you can't disclose that, then, respectfully to your past employer, you need to think about other ways that you could present that information. So instead of saying, I delivered this project, you could say, I delivered a project of this value without identifying the project. Or instead of saying I grew revenue from 5 million to 10 million, you could say I grew revenue by 100%. Or I reduced staff turnover by X percent, a profit margin by Y%. There will be measures on your performance which, rather than giving a finite number, which could be a confidentiality issue, it could be that you offer it as a percentage. You could say something like, working for this organization, I successfully delivered 3 projects with a combined value of $297 million. So really, really important in your CV and on your LinkedIn profile to try and quantify some of these key achievements. But if there are confidentiality concerns, then you need to think about a way to present it, whilst also maintaining some anonymity. I don't think that's really, a hard thing to do. Probably just needs a little bit of thinking. Okay, so we have run out of questions. Who else would like to ask me a question? While you're thinking about that, let me tell you about my experience today, right? So today I had the great opportunity, which I love doing, of going and presenting to an executive leadership team of a health services company about attracting staff. And they have a large internal talent acquisition team. And obviously, I'm not to disclose who they are, but I'm coaching their talent acquisition team at the moment. And part of that coaching is going and presenting to ELT. And really, really interesting. ELT is sitting around the table bemoaning, we're really struggling to get good talent, and we're investing so much time and money into recruitment, and we're not getting the sort of outcomes that we need. And I mean, I'm being pretty general here, but when we sort of drill down into it, most talent acquisition people in companies want to do a great job. They, they take their role very seriously, but it is very much the responsibility of ELT to support them in order to maximize their ability to be successful. So, for example, a company, if they want to attract top talent, they really need to focus on building their brand as an employer of choice. And most company websites put no attention into attracting employees. It's all about attracting clients for their goods and services. But why are they an awesome company to work for? Most employer ELT members' LinkedIn profiles are very underwhelming. There's not really anything in them that excites people about why would I go and work for this person. So the next thing is, briefing. So, regularly organizations, the line managers are not briefing their internal recruitment team properly. And because they're not briefing them properly, it's very difficult then for that internal recruiter to present the opportunity well, to attract the right quality of talent, and to make sure that the people that they're attracting and presenting internally for opportunities are, on brief. And, it goes on and on. So it's very easy as candidates, to sit here, and certainly, I am probably as guilty of this as many, and go, oh, internal recruitment teams, they treat candidates like commodities, and they don't really run a good process, and they don't know what their roles they're recruiting for are, and blah, blah, blah. And yes, that is true in many instances, but if they're not getting the information, the support and availability of the hiring managers and the leadership team to do their job properly, it's very difficult for them. And I think that, it's very easy to condemn recruiters for doing a crap job. And, third-party recruiters should have no excuse. If you're a third-party recruiter, you work for Hayes or Hudson's or Arete or whoever it might be, and you don't know the role that you're recruiting for, and you treat candidates poorly, and you don't follow through on your commitments and so on, get out of my industry. You are the reason the recruiting industry has a crap reputation. If you're a third-party recruiter, if you're an internal recruiter, then I think we need to cut them some slack and say, well, often these people are working on 30, 40, 50, 60 vacancies at any one time. I had a meeting with the head of talent of a very, very substantial Australian organisation a couple of weeks ago. They have 450 current vacancies. Another organisation, 1,100 current vacancies, and they have these internal recruiters who are trying to juggle everything from a receptionist to a CFO at the same time. I really take my hat off to them. It is a tough job. In saying that, there are things that they can do to make the candidate experience a lot better. And that's what I hope that I'm helping to do in my small way, is to help to educate, train, support, mentor, and coach these people. But today we're talking to you as candidates, but I just thought I'd fill in some time while I'm waiting for some more questions. Okay, here we go. Matthew, how do you deal with businesses that run the recruitment process themselves? No one to talk to or discuss the role with, especially at senior level. Okay, interesting. That largely that was what I was just talking about, Matthew. 95%, if not 99% of internal recruiters don't put their name or phone number on an ad. I think that is absolutely and utterly diabolical. I said to this ELT team today, You are struggling to attract the right talent, aren't you? Yes, Richard. And yet you're running ads with nobody's name or phone number on the ad. People want to deal with people. People read an ad and they go, oh, this job looks kind of interesting. I'm not really sure if I want to apply. I'd like to ask some questions. Oh, there's nobody's name or phone number to ring. I won't apply. All right. To me, it's just freaking stupidity. Secondly, I talk to very senior candidates and they go, Richard, pick a name, any name. I applied for this role at Rio Tinto. I've had no acknowledgement of my application. I have no idea as to whether I'm still in play. And of course, there's nobody's name or phone number that I can ring to ask any questions. So what do? They walk around town telling everybody who wants to listen what a crap recruiter or employer Rio Tinto is. Okay, so simple. Put somebody's name and phone number on the ad, right? Then a candidate can ring up, ask questions, can ask for feedback about the status of their application. They're protecting their employer brand, and they're going to attract much better quality applicants. But they don't do it. Why don't they do it? Well, if they're honest, and sometimes they are, they go, yeah, but Richard, I don't want to talk to candidates. Well, if you don't want to talk to candidates, don't do the job. Secondly, how are you going to sell a great candidate on an opportunity who's at least semi-passive if you don't talk to them? Right? It just absolutely drives me crazy, and I'm completely bewildered as to why that is allowed to continue. I saw an ad the other day from Corn Ferry, one of the top 5 executive search companies in the world. Average recruitment fee over $140,000. That's their fee. And they ran an ad for a CFO, nobody's name or phone number to call. I mean, far out, guys. If that is not the epitome of crap, unprofessional, rubbish service, oh, we're Corn Ferry, everybody should want to talk to us. Get lost. Get out of my industry if that's the way that you feel, because every single role advertised by Arete is a recruiter's name and their mobile phone number on the ad. Every single recruiter in my team is strongly encouraged to return every phone call. Now, can I guarantee they do? Of course, I can't guarantee it, but I certainly hope they do, right? It's just simple courtesy, and it makes good business sense. So when you go, why don't these internal recruitment teams, put their names or ads, names on their ads? I don't get it. I'm trying to educate. I put posts up on LinkedIn asking the question, and I just get shot down in flames. Oh, Richard, you don't understand. We're so busy and blah, 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 and we don't have time to talk to candidates. Well, get somebody who does have time. Put somebody's name on there who's got the time. Most of the questions are going to be asked are going to be pretty basic. They're going to be pretty much the same kind of questions each time. Give the receptionist the list of the 5 most commonly asked questions so that they can answer the questions. It's not rocket science, guys. But yep, I hear you, brother. Matthew, I think it is appalling. I saw an ad recently for a chairman of an organization, no name or phone number on the ad, and it even said only candidates selected for shortlist will be contacted. This is for a chair of a substantive company, and you're saying, oh, look, if we don't like you, we're not even going to bother, letting you know that we don't like you. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. Anyway, that's me on my soapbox. Back to Carla. Better have another sip. That was get a bit feisty there. Okay, Carla, what's the current state of the contract contingent labour market in Brisbane's project and transformation space? What's your outlook for how that market will trend over the next 12 months? Well, I think, with the Olympics and other things happening, that market is going to escalate. And the closer we get to the Olympics, it will escalate more and more and more, because a lot of these companies will want to employ people, but they know that they have this deadline of 2032. So I think you'll find that, Carla, that market will increase more and more rapidly, not just in relation to the Olympics, but also because that's just the way that the workforce is trending. I mean, if you think about it, with the rise of AI and AI taking over a lot of the tasks that, human beings would normally do, organizations are going to say, we don't need a full-time resource. It might even be that they go, we don't need a full-time CFO or whatever it might be. But we don't need these full-time employees because a lot of the grunty transactional BAU work that they used to do is now being done by AI. And so what does that mean? Well, the negative side of it will be, will there be more people out of work? Maybe. But the other side is that there'll be more people working in this contracting contingent type space, right? Where they're working fractionally or they're doing interim roles or part-time roles. And so I think it's, inevitable. I think that we need to embrace that change. Certainly as a recruitment company, we are, trying to be on the front foot of it as possible by offering now, specific interim and fractional recruitment solutions. But I think if that's the kind of gig that you want, Carla, you should feel optimistic. My highest recommendation, reach out directly to your employers of choice. Get in front of the key decision makers, pitching yourself for those opportunities. And my book and webinars that we can share with you, very sort of deep dive into how to do that. Okay, back to Ali. It's the Ali and Carla show. I like it. Ali, in your opinion, getting close to the age of 50. Oh my goodness, I'm 57, Ali. So you're a spring chicken. In your opinion, getting close to the age of 50, should the candidate try to settle down or still change industries and get variety of experience? Well, that's I did an MBA, and one of my lecturers said, Richard, you need to answer every question with it depends. And that's definitely a it depends answer, Ali. I mean, do you want to settle down? Do you want to sit in a role and do a good job and ride it out for the next 10, 15, 20 years of your career before you retire? Or do you want the variety and the change and the risk and everything that comes with that of changing industries? Different horses, different courses, right? The reality is now that pending, Terminator and global apocalypse, we will live to be way older. And because obviously we'll live to be way older, we'll probably be working a lot longer than we would have in the past. I mean, my father, retired at 60, and that was kind of old for retirement then. I mean, I'm 57. I can't imagine retiring at 60, especially if I'm going to live to be 120. It's another whole life of being retired. Apart from anything else, how the bloody hell am I going to afford it, right? So, the reality is for most of us, hopefully because of desire rather than necessity, we will work into our 70s, potentially even into our 80s, right? So that being the case at 50, you've probably got as much time left in your career as you've already had. If you came into work at 20, you've had 30 years to 50, another 30 years to 80. So I don't know. It depends on what you want, right? There are times where I go, oh, life would be so much easier if I just worked for the public service and I did my 38 hours a week and I had my 4 weeks holiday a year, and but I'd be bored stupid. And so I don't know. I can't answer that for you. I think you need a life coach for that one, Ali, and I could definitely recommend some good ones to you, but that is not me. All right, Edison. Nice to hear from you, Edison. Cool name. Edison, not knowing the nature of software and most popular software in industry, my question is software used to filter resumes. Okay, this is a question I get asked a lot, right? So people go, oh, I need to write my CV that it's going to have all the right keywords and blah, blah, so it gets picked up by the software. There's an excellent documentary on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it. And it's about the sort of unconscious bias of software, because software largely programmed predominantly by white men. The software, they were saying, for example, I can't remember, I think it was Amazon or some of these companies, non-white or female candidates were being rejected from recruitment processes, not because the people who programmed the software were deliberately being, misogynistic or racist or whatever. It's just because of the fact that being white, men programming it, the software just naturally seemed to preference those. It's a really fascinating documentary. I'd highly recommend that you watch it. But I'm not saying that companies don't use it, and certainly for junior roles or potentially more technical roles, where it might be, say, a computer role and, they need to know, has this person got experience with this particular kind of software or whatever, they might use that. But what I can tell you is I've been in executive recruitment for 20 plus years. I've never, ever used software to review somebody's CV. I never will, right? Why? Because somebody might be amazing at their job, but really crap at writing a CV. So if I use software to cut out those people who write crap CVs, I might be missing out on excellent candidates just because they can't write a good CV. As an example, I can't tell you how many senior executives send through their CV with no contact details on it, no phone number, no email address, nothing. And you think, wow, like this person's been the CEO of blah, blah company, but they don't even know to put their email and phone number on their CV. It happens all the time. Every single person that applies for a job at Arete, their CV gets viewed. Now, their CV may only be viewed for 15 seconds, right? And that is not an exaggeration. CVs first pass 10, 15 seconds. You need to make sure that your CV is written in a way that makes you immediately attractive for the role that you're applying for. Again, a lot more detail about that in my book. But, these CVs that pass, in other words, extract, certain bits of information, these AI programs that do that, I've never used them. I think that, there's a lot of talk, by candidates, I didn't get interviewed for this job because my CV didn't have the right keywords, particularly at a more senior leadership level. I don't think that that's true. Maybe it is, but certainly not my experience. Okay. Helen, my good friend Helen, I'm assuming that the recruitment space will quieten down coming up to Christmas. If so, when will it gear up again as somebody looking for fractional interim roles? I think historically, Helen, you're absolutely correct. Back in the good old days, the recruiting industry would start to slow down at the beginning of December and not really ramp up again until after Australia Day. People are on holidays, they're not reading the paper, they're not seeing the job ads, right? Now, everybody's online. Even when you're on holidays, you're still looking at emails, you're still looking at Seek, you're still looking at LinkedIn and so on. Other than this year, which we actually had a quiet Christmas period, the year before, January, our best month ever by over 50%. Especially in this last 5 years, December, January, quite conversely, our busiest time. Why has that changed? Not really sure. I think, people's holidays have, they have changed in terms of how they choose to take holidays. People's, availability has changed. People's access to opportunities through Seek and other things on their mobile phones, etc., has changed. So, fingers crossed for us, we have a busy December, January. And when you think about it, companies are at that time, planning their human capital needs for the forthcoming year. So they're more in the mind of who do we need to employ to kickstart the next year. And also candidates are thinking about, well, next year I really need to change jobs. So they're being more active from a job seeking point of view. So yeah, historically, I would say you're definitely correct there, Helen. It's not been my experience at all over the last few years. In fact, quite the reverse. And the other thing too is in terms of accessing hidden job market opportunities, get in front of your employers before they know that before they know that they need you. This is a great time for you to do that because, as people are starting to perhaps slow down, not yet, but, late November, early December, starting to slow down, they've got more capacity and availability to have meetings with you. They've already started to think about the kind of people that they need for the new year. They probably haven't yet gone to the market. So if you can get in front of them before Christmas and present yourself for fractional, interim, board, whatever opportunities, then you're probably in a great position to secure that role before the client would have gone to the market. So I would say, if anything, this is a great time to be out there, searching for those roles. Okay, Julian, nice to talk to you, Julian. Hey, Richard, thanks for having us and answering questions. Although I'm quite specific about job advertisements I apply to, still a lot of work writing covering letters. Okay, another excellent question. I can say with my hand on my heart, I probably have not read a covering letter in at least 15 years. I never read them. They're a complete waste of time. I would only ever advise you to write a covering letter if an advertisement specifically calls for one. Nobody reads them. Okay, you apply, I look at your CV. I want to see the evidence in your CV that you've done it before, you've done it well, you're motivated to do it again. I couldn't care less about your letter, right? Don't worry about it. Unless the ad says write a letter, don't write a letter. It doesn't get read, okay? My only caveat to that is that if you're applying for a role directly with an employer and that employer is recruiting far less frequently and they might be a little bit more interested, then maybe you use a covering letter. But if we're running multiple roles and we're getting hundreds of applicants per role, we have no time or desire to read letters at all. Secondly, don't put stuff in your letter that should be in your CV. So if there are things that an ad is calling for and you put it in your letter but not your CV, and I don't read your letter, then I'm not going to read that stuff, right? So, and again, going back to that example about the executive who doesn't put their name or phone number or email address in their CV, they go, oh, it was in my covering letter. I don't read the covering letter. So yes, it is a huge waste of time. It's very time consuming. I don't advocate doing that at all. Similarly, why do the government, ask for selection criteria nowadays? Most people don't want to do it because they think the job's probably already filled. The government's just going through, this process to show transparency. Writing these, selection criteria is a pain in the butt. It's a load of rubbish. I'm not going to apply, right? There are actually professionals who will write your selection criteria for you. So once again, unless an ad calls for you to fill out selection criteria, I wouldn't bother doing it. The fact that government still asks for that in some instances, I think is dumb because they're reducing the quality of applicants they get because a lot of applicants can't be bothered doing that rubbish. But, good old government, they do what they want to do, which is why we don't recruit for government. Okay. Is a doco called coded bias? I'm not sure, but if you've done a Google search and it said that that's it, it sounds about right. Then yes, that doco coded bias. One of the other things that was interesting in that, is just the way that, for example, software in terms of taking photographs has been programmed and a whole heap of things that, have this implicit bias in it that you never ever would have expected. A great watch, a few years old now. So I'm imagining quite a few of the issues that were identified may have been remedied, but certainly at the time, very thought-provoking. Right, Edison. Yes, I'm excellent at making money for others, but can't brag about myself, i.e., write resume to save my life. Well, honestly, writing a resume, Edison, is pretty simple, right? Again, read my book, watch my webinar on how to write a good CV. If you don't have that, send us an email or send it to you. It's pretty easy, right? People spend fortunes on getting professional CV writers, and quite honestly, most of the time, I think they waste their money. Right? All you need to do with your CV is to write clearly, what are my 4 or 5 responsibilities and what are my 4 or 5 key achievements? Okay, so somebody says, again, CVs, so many times people are in a leadership role, right? They're applying for a leadership role, but they don't put in their CV the size of the team that they managed, or the types of people that they managed, or the revenue of the business unit that they managed. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff, right? So, I worked in this role. I managed a team of 27 people across the finance, marketing, and, safety functions. My business unit, had an operating budget of $27 million, whatever, right? Pretty simple. Okay, my achievements. Okay, so if you say my achievements, I managed a team of 10 people, that is not an achievement. That's a responsibility, right? An achievement is, I reduced staff turnover by X. I improved profitability by Y. I increased market share by Z. I eliminated lost time injuries, whatever it is. Quantifiable, sexy key achievements that make me think, wow, I want to talk to this person. If you're not sure, play a little game with your husband, wife, friend, colleague, or whoever it might be. And so they say, okay, so Edison, so in that particular role, what did you achieve that you were most proud of? Well, I launched this new product into this new market and we grew sales by $12 million in 1 year. Okay, amazing key achievement. Put that into your CV. And then the other point you make there, I'm excellent at making money for others, but can't brag about myself. Well, I say this with due respect, time for people to put their adult pants on, right? I hear that all the time. Oh, Richard, I'm so good at talking about my company, but I feel so, unsure about promoting myself. You're awesome. You're an awesome candidate. People would be amazed and delighted to hire you. They can't hire you if they don't know who you are. They won't hire you if they don't know how good you are. So this is the one opportunity to brag about yourself, to not brag about yourself in a stupid way, say you can do things you can't, or big note yourself, inappropriately. But if you're awesome, you need to tell people why you are awesome and put it in your CV. And more importantly, put it on your LinkedIn profile. I'm sure, Edison, if you sat down and did that exercise, you'd have incredible things to write about yourself. Julian, brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Edison, great stuff. Thanks, Rich. And look at us. We're exactly on 5:59, 1 hour. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Do we have any final queries, questions, concerns, or otherwise? Going, gone. Have a great night. Good luck with your job search. Hope to see you at an event. And, remember me fondly. Thank you and good night.